Everybody, we're going to go through a basic retouching exercise for your film scans. I've gone ahead and launched Adobe Photoshop. Please keep in mind that all Adobe products are now asking you to sign in with your own login, so you may have to click on the little icon at the top here and sign in with your login when you're prompted. If you don't have an account, you may need to make one. And notice that Magna Rodriguez is signed in right now. So after every session, make sure you sign out, because now I have access to her account, and that's not cool. So to sign out, you're going to want to, let's see if we stretch this out. You're going to want to also sign in as yourself on the machine rather than CCSF Computer's generic user. I recommend signing in as yourself. And to sign out, I should be able to click on this and choose sign out when I'm finished. I'm not going to look for it right now, but I should be able to click here, and here I go, sign out. So make sure you, if you're not logged in as yourself, if you're logged in as the generic user, that you sign out. Okay? So I'll sign out at the end. I'm going to go ahead and choose open and find my scan and go ahead and open it in Photoshop. This is Photoshop CC, Creative Suite. I'm going to choose the green button to maximize my screen, and I'm also going to choose Window, Workspace, Reset Photography, which gives me the photography workspace. The first thing I'd like to show you, and here's my beautiful tree image. If you want to check the resolution, you can choose image size. And right now it's got a very large resolution, but if I uncheck resample and I type in a resolution for print, you can see that this is going to make approximately a 12 by 11.5 size image, or 11 by 11. And I'll go ahead and say OK. So the lowest resolution that's recommended for inkjet printing is 240. Just make sure you uncheck resample so that you keep the resolution. And if you don't have a good understanding of resolution, I recommend that you take the Photoshop or the scanning class, which goes over it. But basically, this is the total amount of pixels in the image, 2,967 by 2,741 pixels. That's the dimensions, and that is broken down into inches. So if I multiply 12 times 240, that's going to give me this first number. 11 times 240 is going to give me the second number here. So when we divide the print resolution 240 into this number, that's where we get our dimensions in inches. So we're converting pixels to inches. Say OK. And you see the size didn't change. We've just reallocated pixels. To check the sharpness of your image, you always want to view it at 100%. And this is where you're also going to look for dust. I like to hold my space bar down, which automatically gives me the hand tool, which is located here. Hold my space bar down and click and hold and drag and look around for dust. And this is a pretty clean scan because I used canned air on the negative before I scanned it. But I see some dust here and in the background and a little bit here in the foreground that I'm going to want to remove. And I'm going to show you how to do that today. Very basic. The way that I do retouching is not to duplicate the background, because that actually doubles the file size. Instead, we do a layer, new, blank layer, and we're going to name it Retouching. I recommend for basic retouching of dust that you use the healing brush tool. The keyboard shortcut is J like Jewel on your keyboard to get the healing brush tool. And I like this healing brush tool, the advanced one, versus the spot healing brush tool. So make sure you have the regular healing brush tool. Up here at the top, let's go through your tool options. Normal mode, sampled. We want aligned checked. And we're going to use current and below. Current and below means we're going to sample on this layer down through this layer. So when we do our retouching, it's going to see beneath down to the background layer and put it on the blank layer we created. So using my hand tool, I'm going to go over to where there's a spot I'd like to retouch, like right here. And on my keyboard with my left hand, I'm going to choose the Option key. The Option key shows me a targeted area. I'm going to go and this is my sample area, and I want to sample a good area and then retouch over the area that needs repair. So I'm going to sample here by holding down my Option key, clicking once, which saves it to the temporary clipboard. And then I'm going to roll over, and you get a preview. I'm going to roll over here and click once, and that goes and lays down the retouch. I don't think it looks so good, so I'm going to choose Command Z to undo. And I'm going to zoom in a little closer using the zoom tool, or I like to use Apple and the Apple key and the space bar to get my zoom tool, and then I can just click right in and see a little closer. So normally you want to evaluate at 100. 100 is what your eye will see on the print. But sometimes we need to zoom in a little more closely, and you can do that with the Apple key and the Shift key, or you can use the navigator on the upper right-hand side to zoom in a little closer. It's just that you don't want to repair all of this because you're zoomed in a lot and you're seeing more than you'll actually see on the print. I thought that actually my hardness the edge looked a little hard on that last retouch that I did, so I'm going to go ahead and move the hardness of my brush down. You're going to roll over the area you want to retouch, and if you need to adjust the size of the brush, you can do that up here. So I'm going to roll over a good area, Option click, roll over the area that needs to be retouched once. You see how that works? And then you may need to change the size of your brush. You can do that by going back up here to the brush toolbox, or I like to use the keyboard shortcut left bracket for smaller, right bracket for larger. The brackets are next to the P like Paul key on your keyboard. Option click, roll over the bad area. Option click, so I'm option clicking frequently so that the areas that I'm using to borrow from match the areas that need repair. You're going to keep doing this until you're happy. Notice that my retouching layer only has the retouches on it, so it's maintaining a small file size by not duplicating that background layer. Option click in a good area, retouch the bad area, and reevaluate at 100%. Again, you don't want to get too microscopic. You only want to retouch areas that you can see at 100% because that's what's going to show up on your print. Save frequently. This is a TIFF. All you need to do is file save, and it'll overwrite the file, the original file, with this new layer, and then you can print this file directly. Before you go to print, there's a lot of things you can do to massage the image. That's basic retouching. But if you've never used Photoshop before, I'm going to make a very quick recommendation to go to Layer, New Adjustment Layer, and choose your levels, contrast, and just check the contrast of your levels. You should have information on the right-hand side and the left-hand side. If you don't, then you're going to want to, if you want to increase the contrast, you're going to want to squish the handles in a little bit more. And remember, what you see on the screen is not necessarily what you'll see in print, which is why it's good to use an adjustment layer, because I can double-click on this and change it at any time. And that's just a very basic thing to do to your scanned file. Scanned files don't always need to be sharpened like camera files do because the scanner does a lot of sharpening, but you could sharpen the file if you wanted to.